Hello, welcome once again to our Sunday edition of Meteorology Lab. Typical summer conditions here in Texas, but we've got quite a bit of active weather up in the north central U.S. and way up in Canada. And here's a quick look at a surface analysis. So why don't we do a quick diagnosis of this. And one thing that you'll notice, I don't know if you can read these numbers, but there's some very cold air coming in from the Dakotas. Temperatures are only in the 60s in that region, and the dew points are running about pretty much in the 50s there. So we've got that cool, dry Canadian air replacing the tropical air. So this here out in Missouri and Arkansas, that's part of the tropical air mass, but how far north does it extend? Well, we've got 80s all the way up in Illinois. Looks like it's a very gradual decrease in temperature, very, very slight. We go from 90s down to 80s, and this air mass here looks kind of homogeneous. So what I might look for is right in this area, Arkansas. You can see we dropped from 94 at Texarkana, 93 at El Dorado, down to 82 in northern Mississippi. So I think that may be where we have a boundary at this time. So I'm going to... This is what we do when we do a chart analysis. You know, we do a very quick frontal position, just try to get a rough idea where things are sitting before we go in and do the isobars. So that's kind of what I'm doing right there. And you can see the surface low in southeastern Iowa, right in this area here. So I think we're ready to go. So let's do a quick isobar analysis. So I think I'm going to start with the 0,8 line. Looks like we got a bit of a low there in the DFW area, so bring that 0,8 contour all the way south. Looks like that kind of waves around like that. 0,8 does not make it all the way up to the frontal boundary. And we're going to probably end it about right there in the mountains. Let's see if we have a 1-2. Yep, there it is right there. It's off to the bottom. 1-2. And that connects like that. And it also goes up to the Illinois, Indiana area. And if you find that these isobars are not falling like directly in the frontal zone, that might clue you in that there might be a boundary up in this area. See that little troughiness right there. So we'll keep an eye on this as we go through the chart analysis. And let me see if we have a 0,8. Yep, we do right there. And that doesn't go very far north and only goes up around Falls City, Iowa, right in that area right there. So that's the 0,8. And what we'll do is we'll analyze every two, so there's going to be a 0,6. And then I'll see if we have a 10. Okay. Okay, then we'll try to find 12. Actually, this goes a little further north. Get that centered there. Okay, 12. Looks like a bit of an occlusion in the Minneapolis area. You can see these contours are trying to go pretty far to the north, and I see a little bit of a circulation that's off the top of the chart there. Let me see if I can bring that up there. Yeah, right up here. See, that 12 doesn't quite go all the way up north like that, so I'm going to bring that a little further south. Kind of like that, but I do see the circulation right in this area here. Okay, we'll just finish this up with a 14. And then I'll draw a 16. I'm just going to go very quickly so we don't spend 20 minutes working on this chart. And then we'll just bring the fronts in real quick. There's that cold front coming out of Kansas and the panhandles. Got our surface low. Let's see, we got, yeah, what's going on here? 05. Yeah, the actual surface low is right around the Emporia, Kansas area, right in there. And there's where the warm front is. Okay, so those are the main features at this time. So maybe I'll draw a little trough right in that area. And then back in here we can see a little ridge coming in from the western Dakotas. So that's the situation, and when we have a big low in the Central Plains, I might be kind of concerned with whether there's a dry line. Well, let's see, I do see 70s in Oklahoma, but the dew points don't fall off very much. 65 in Childress, 64 in Lubbock, 62. Yeah, there's not really much of a dry line. If I was going to place one, I might keep it way back in this area here. So that's typically what we see this time of year. It is hard to get the dry line to move very far into Texas and Oklahoma because of the sheer volume of tropical air coming up from the Gulf. All right, so yeah, that's our quick and dirty frontal analysis. Let me check in on chat and make sure everything is looking good before we proceed to the charts. Got Carl Berghoff here and Shirley Keast. Let me adjust the microphone here. Bill K, David Lumbert, 3 tornado warnings, Northwest Arkansas, along that cold front. Sue M, and Burl H, Adam Davis, checking in from Indianapolis. Early schedule there. Patrick Motes, yeah, appreciate the comments there. Oliver 6, Alexi Pinkson Walsh, Ryan Toomey's there in Florida, Christina Russo. Ryan pointing out a nice chase day possible in the Midwest and Four Corners area. Getting some chaser footage there from Periscope. Jason Flood is here, and Willie Greenway in Georgia, and appreciate the comment, Shirley, there. Okay, so let's head into the charts here. There we go. You can see we've got a slight risk for northwest Arkansas, southwestern Missouri there. And we traced out that cold front up in Oklahoma. It looks like there's maybe a little bit of a disturbance extending down into central Texas. In fact, yeah, let me go back to that chart there. I don't know if you can see down in Texas, but there's north winds around Hobbs and Snyder, so there could be a secondary boundary, kind of like that right there. It is pretty hard to pin down exactly where the fronts are when you have this downslope flow occurring, because you get the adiabatic warming back in behind it, and that makes it kind of hard to distinguish exactly where it is. You can see we've got 86 here at Oklahoma City, 84 Woodward, so it's a very, very slow drop-off, and it's only when we get into western Kansas that we're positive that we're in the polar air. So that front could actually be anywhere between Ardmore, Tulsa, possibly as far back as Elk City, Stillwater, Enid. So we would have to kind of track this over the course of a day to really get a feel for exactly where that frontal placement is. And I've only been tracking things as long as we've been on the air here, so let's go ahead and head into the rest of the charts. There's our system right there. Let's check out the surface patterns, the SPC mesoanalysis. Let me get that centered there. And we'll look at the moisture field. And there's quite a lot of moisture out there. What I'm looking for here is a moisture axis. And I'm looking at the shading here. And I can see one little moisture axis running from about Austin up to northeast Texas there. There's definitely evidence of a outflow boundary covering this entire area right there. And looks like more moisture all the way up into central Oklahoma. So what does that tell us? The environment over much of Oklahoma and Texas is actually supportive of storms there. Let me take a quick look at the shading here. Hang on a second here. Okay, yeah, there's actually some richer moisture in Arkansas right there. I got kind of confused by the shading. This yellow is actually the deeper moisture. So there we go. That makes a little bit more sense. So yeah, very rich conditions there in Arkansas. Little Rock Sounding probably looking pretty potent there, very likely. And maybe we can go ahead and head straight to that. Okay, this morning the Little Rock Sounding looked like this right here. A little bit of dry air right off the surface there, but dew points near the surface in the low 70s. And let's see how it looks this evening. Bring that about 12 hours forward. And it does look a little bit more moist there. Average low-level mixing ratio probably about right there, 16 grams per kilogram. So if we lift that from like 88 degree dew point or 88 degree temperatures, very slight capping and very tall, skinny cape right there. Okay, let's keep things moving and look at the upper air pattern. Definitely a change from 3 days ago. We had that polar front jet meandering up there in central Canada, but we've got more of a very deep northwesterly flow. And if we saw this during the wintertime, we'd be thinking of Arctic outbreaks. So yeah, very strong northwesterly flow and a couple of very strong waves moving through the pattern. So there's 3 of them there, one over the eastern Midwest, another one in the high plains, Colorado, New Mexico, and the other just off the west coast. So we are getting into an active pattern there, very much more meridional than what we had a few days ago. And of course the subtropical high is backed off. We're now finding that in southern California there. So the heat is likely on right there in the Mojave Desert, but elsewhere we're getting into more of a fall-like pattern in the central U.S. and out east. The thickness chart, lots of cold air up to the north. In fact, let's check that out there. Got a very deep Hudson Bay system right there. Strong cold front coming south there. There's all the fronts. And the appearance of the 540 decameter line right there, which is typically a rain-snow transition there. So some very cold air up there in the high Arctic. But most of that is heading into eastern Canada there. And then down to the south we've got our secondary system with a split flow pattern. There it is right there. Looks like our fronts are kind of in the ballpark there. I guess I would probably have to bring that further south than what I had on that surface chart, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think I might indeed bring that further south, like that shows there. Precipitable water. What kind of changes have we had? Well, some very high precipitable waters out in Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana. So that's the richer tropical air. That's some of the fuel for that thunderstorm activity along the front there. And out over the high plains, you can see the drying trend. That dry air circling around like that, producing kind of a dry slot in the back there over Oklahoma and the Panhandles. Okay, we can take a look at the satellite. And there's our storm there, centered in eastern Kansas and Missouri there. And there's the storms popping up along the frontal boundary right there in eastern Oklahoma, Fort Smith area, Bentonville, and down to Mount Ida and Paris, Texas. We can take a closer look. Actually, yeah, infrared imagery shows some of the more potent cells. So these are the cold anvil tops reflecting, or it's transmitting very little infrared imagery to the satellite, so it shows as cold. And we'll animate that real quick. So a lot of these cells have just popped up in the last couple of hours there in western Arkansas. So maybe I'll bring up the radar. We'll take a look at a couple of them. And we got GR level 2 coming up. There we go. I guess we'll take that on up to, let's see, Springfield or Fort Smith. I guess we'll do Fort Smith there. Okay, the data is coming. Now we'll zoom in a little bit and see how things progressed during the afternoon. Let's run this back to late morning. You can see this baroclinic shield right there over eastern Kansas down into eastern Oklahoma. And just, you know, looking at this the way it is, we can pretty much identify right where the fronts are. Cold front tends to be along that tail end of this baroclinic pattern, and where we have this cloud shield right here, this is often correlated with the warm air advection region. So we would find the warm front right in that area there. So that can give us a good initial position for where the boundaries are before we go to the surface analysis. All right, let's see how things progressed. You can see things becoming unstable there in eastern Oklahoma, and then the cells go up around 4 o'clock. They're kind of discrete there, which is favorable for severe weather. And we got a couple tornado warnings. So this one is moving into Van Buren County there, and that has the appearance of an HP supercell. So that right there, that's the HP. So this is the bear's cage right there, and that's the region we would be watching there for any possible tornado development. Base velocity, yes, it's got some very strong rotation. So we're going to want to set a storm motion vector. And let me just do a couple of adjustments here. And this shows our mesocyclone there. So that dot right there is going to be about in the center, and we're seeing about 35 inbound and 24 outbound. So that's about 50 to 60 knots of shear. It's not particularly strong, but it does bear watching, and getting probably about 30 knots to get shear, 30 to 40. And this is about, let's see, how far from the radar? That's about 71 miles. So. And we'll take a look up to the north. I guess this one's too far away. But they've got that tornado warning for southeastern Lawrence County. And looks like it's been canceled. Anyway, there's cells up there just southwest of the Springfield area. Looks like that's heading towards the Branson area. Actually, I'm trying to find Branson. I'm not that familiar with Missouri. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in there somewhere. Anyway, let's keep things moving, and I guess we're about ready to head into the forecast, so let's do that. There's our cells out there in northern Arkansas. Looks like we're going to get an MCS overnight moving along the state line area. And the high-resolution rapid refresh has that starting to die out around 3 to 4 in the morning as it approaches the Mississippi River. All right, and other than that, it should be pretty quiet tonight. Looks like a few cells on the tail end there around Abilene. A little bit of upslope flow going on in that region right there. The wind components are kind of like that. And let's look at the upper air pattern for tomorrow. Things are definitely getting interesting right there. There's that big wave moving into the Great Plains. That's going to progress pretty quickly to the east. So for tomorrow afternoon, that'll be approaching Illinois and St. Louis. So it looks like maybe rain chances will be going up in this area. Depends exactly where the moisture is. And then we have this second wave coming into Idaho and Oregon. So it looks like this one will get locked down by this subtropical high. Looks like that builds right back into New Mexico for Tuesday. So I guess we're going to be warming up a little bit in Texas there. So there's that ridge there. It's going to be blocking the approach of this system. And then I can see at the long wave scales this right here. This is this looks like some height rises in that area. Yeah, there it is. That's the ridging starting to build in once again. So it's covering this entire western part of the U.S. So I guess the weather this week will be interesting mostly for the eastern U.S. Yeah, probably not a whole lot going on in Texas, but up to the north, probably some storms up in that area, especially with the orographic processes in that region. Then let's look at the long-term. There we go. There's our system up there in Missouri. Let's go into tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where the, well, obviously the front is going to be right in there, but I'm not, it's very hard to place that warm front because the thermal gradient is so weak. But I might go something like that right there. So this is going to be tomorrow afternoon. And this has the look of possible severe weather. Maybe in that area right there, Indiana, Illinois, and maybe extreme western Ohio. Anyway, that'll progress eastward tomorrow night. And then when we go into Tuesday, that system will be moving up into southern Ontario. So it looks like a new push of cold air coming into the Midwest there. And then the warm front, maybe something like that right there. Anyway, this high will be building in across the northern plains, and that should build into much of the central and eastern U.S. around midweek. Gulf is not quite open until Thursday, maybe Friday. Yeah, here it looks like it's starting to open up there on Friday. So that'll limit the moisture a little bit. And then we got this little Alberta clipper coming south. Actually, two of them for Friday. So those will affect mostly the Midwest and the Great Lakes area. And then here comes another stronger system on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And that's going to stay mostly up north. Another system coming together there in Montana for Monday, the 27th. And then we got this very deep southerly flow coming up from the Gulf. There's the front right there. And I'm afraid that's going to stay mostly up to the north, at least initially. That's, you know, such a shame that we've got such an active weather pattern, lots of cold air up to the north, and we can't seem to bring it south. There's the polar front boundary right there, and yeah, it looks like it maybe pushes south a little bit around the September 2nd there with this 1030 high coming out of Manitoba. Yeah, that'll push that pretty far south for the first week of September. And then after that, I guess we're back to heat with this thermal ridge across the Rockies. Okay, let me check in on chat there. Ryan suggesting the Springfield side. I'll go ahead and bring that up real quick. Lexi says, don't forget to hit the like button. I appreciate that. Patrick Motes likes the old school analysis, breaking out the pencil and paper. And let me just go quickly through the messages here. I appreciate that, Shirley. Ryan Toomey is mentioning the Atlantic and Caribbean water temperatures climbing up currently. NHC buoy readings up as of 12Z. And quite in the Atlantic region. Anyway, here's the Springfield radar. And what I see is kind of a very linear outflowish system right there. What I'll do is I'll bring up the base velocity. Look, what I'm looking for is any couplets of interest, and I don't really see anything. There's the Echo Tops product. One problem is that the antenna cannot quite tilt high enough to reach the upper parts of the storm directly over the radar site, so we're not able to use the upper parts of the scan very much. Let me try to go to some of these higher tilts. Yeah, the stronger cell looks to be right there southwest of Springfield. Yeah, let me go back down. And let me just give you a quick cross-section. And this cell looks pretty sheared there. Looks like some overhang there, but it looks like mostly wind blown. Let me go back down to the low levels. Do one more check of the base velocity. Let me go up to some of the higher tilts there. Yeah, here's a little circulation right there. Anyway, other than that, don't see a whole lot going on up in Springfield. It does have a kind of a bow echo structure there. You can see that convex appearance there. Looks like some stronger winds coming through that region. Anyway, I think that's about all I got for tonight. All right, well, thanks all. I appreciate you watching, and we'll be back on Tuesday. Get that music started there. Anyway, glad you could all make it out, and we'll try to do more of these analyses and that kind of thing over the next couple weeks. Anyway, y'all take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Or have it. Okay, we'll see you Tuesday. Bye-bye.